The day started like any other at the luxury car dealership. Polished floors, shining cars, and suited-up employees, ready to impress wealthy clients. But when a young black man walked in, casually dressed in a suede jacket and jeans, he didn't get the warm welcome others did. Instead, the manager's sharp eyes locked onto him with suspicion. "Can I help you?" the man in the blue pinstripe suit asked, his tone dripping with doubt. But before he could even answer, the manager's expression hardened. "Actually, I think you're in the wrong place." The young man leaned against a pristine white Bentley, unfazed. His calm confidence only seemed to irritate the manager more. Within moments, voices were raised, eyes turned, and tension filled the showroom. What no one knew, including the furious manager, was that this wasn't just any customer. This was their new boss, and he was about to change everything. The manager's frustration grew as he pointed toward the exit. "I don't have time for this. Our real customers expect a certain experience, and you're making people uncomfortable." His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear, and a few employees exchanged nervous glances. The young man stayed quiet, studying the manager's face. He had seen this kind of treatment before, being judged by appearances, assumed to be someone who didn't belong. But instead of arguing, he simply smirked and crossed his arms. "Is that so?" A salesman in the background hesitated, recognizing something familiar about the man, but staying silent. Meanwhile, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside, and a well-dressed older gentleman stepped out, glancing toward the scene inside. The employees instantly straightened up, whispering among themselves. The tension in the room was thick. No one knew what was coming next, but they were about to find out. The manager clenched his jaw, growing impatient. "I'm not going to ask again. You need to leave." His voice was firm, but the young man still didn't move. Instead, he glanced at the employees, noticing their unease. Some of them looked like they wanted to intervene, but no one dared to challenge their boss. Just then, the older gentleman from outside stepped into the showroom, his polished shoes clicking against the tile. The moment the manager saw him, his entire demeanor shifted. "Mr. Reynolds." "Good afternoon, sir," he said, forcing a smile. The tension in the air was suddenly masked by fake politeness. Mr. Reynolds barely acknowledged the manager. His sharp eyes scanned the room before locking onto the young man. A slow smile formed on his lips. "Ah, there you are," he said warmly. "I've been waiting for you." The manager blinked in confusion. "Wait, you know him?" The young man smirked. "Yeah, he's my business partner." The room fell silent. The manager's face twisted in disbelief as he looked between the young man and Mr. Reynolds. "Business partner?" he repeated, his voice shaky. The young man finally pushed himself off the Bentley, taking a slow step forward. "That's right," he said, his calm tone now carrying an edge. "And I came here today to see how things were running." A few employees exchanged nervous glances, suddenly realizing they had been watching something much bigger unfold. The salesman who had hesitated earlier took a small step back, as if wanting to distance himself from the manager. Mr. Reynolds folded his arms, his expression unreadable. "I wanted to see how my new co-owner would be treated if he walked in like any other customer," he said, glancing around the showroom. "And I have to say, I'm disappointed." The manager swallowed hard. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. "Sir, Save it," the young man interrupted. "I think I've seen enough." The manager's hands trembled slightly as he scrambled to regain control. "This is all just a misunderstanding," he stammered, forcing a nervous chuckle. "If I had known who you were—" The young man tilted his head. "If you had known," he repeated, his voice calm but sharp. So you only treat people with respect when you think they have power. Mr. Reynolds let out a heavy sigh, shaking his head. That's not how we do business, he said firmly. The employees around them remained frozen, afraid to speak up. Then, before the manager could respond, the automatic doors swung open again. A woman in a sleek navy blue suit walked in, holding a leather folder. She scanned the room and then locked eyes with the young man. "I just finalized the paperwork," she announced. "Everything is official." The young man smiled. Perfect timing. He turned back to the manager. "I'm not just the new co-owner," he said, letting the words hang in the air. "I'm also in charge of staffing decisions." The manager's face went pale. The realization hit him all at once. His job, his entire career, was now in the hands of the very man he had just tried to throw out. The manager took a shaky step back, his confidence completely shattered. "Listen, I didn't mean any harm," he stuttered. "It was just a mistake." The young man studied him for a long moment, letting the weight of the situation sink in. "A mistake?" he echoed. "Or just your usual way of treating people who don't look the part?" Mr. Reynolds exhaled, clearly disappointed. This dealership was built on customer service and respect. If this is how you run things when you think no one's watching, then we have a serious problem. The manager's desperation was evident now. "I can fix this," he pleaded. "Give me another chance." The young man exchanged a glance with Mr. Reynolds before shaking his head. "I believe in second chances," he said, pausing for effect. "But not for people who only change when they get caught." Security stepped forward, ready to escort the manager out, but then the young man held up a hand. "Wait." For a brief second, the manager's face lit up with hope. But the young man smirked. "I want you to personally apologize to every employee and customer you've disrespected before you leave. Let them see the real lesson here." The manager swallowed hard, his pride battling his fear. But he knew there was no escaping this. Slowly, he turned to the employees, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hi, I'm sorry." As he was led out of the building, the young man turned to the stunned employees. "Things are about to change around here," he said with a grin. "Starting today." And just like that, the dealership had a new era ahead, one built on respect, not assumptions. The employees exchanged glances, still processing what had just happened. Some of them, who had once stayed silent out of fear, now stood a little taller. A quiet buzz filled the showroom, relief, excitement, and the realization that change was finally here. Mr. Reynolds placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "This place is in good hands," he said with a nod. "I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with it." The young man smiled. "First step, making sure everyone, no matter who they are, gets treated with respect the moment they walk through those doors." A few employees clapped, and even customers who had witnessed the scene nodded in approval. The toxic culture that had once lingered in the dealership was gone. As the young man walked toward his new office, he glanced back at the shining cars, the hopeful faces, and the future he was about to build. This was just the beginning.